All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Franchise Your Business webinar series. And as people are loading in, if you're new to our session or you haven't been here in a while, just a reminder, we like to bring in industry experts and people to talk about things that are important and relevant to you as a franchisor in a growing franchise system. My name's Tom Dufour. I'm the founder and CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And today I am joined by Madhav, who's with Orchatect. And he and I, we've run into each other quite a bit here at various franchise expos and some common clients that we have together. And really, the purpose of having him join is to talk about this myriad of technology systems and platforms that every business uses. And I know I remember one time someone asked me, well, how many systems do you think you use? And I thought about it. I don't know, 5 or 7, 8 of these, and then when I actually put it all together, it was dozens of different technology systems and platforms that I just didn't think about. Little one here, little piece there. And before you know it, they've all got bits and pieces of information. They're not talking to each other and you're not gathering all the data. And so I thought, boy, this is right up Madhav's alley to share and talk about that. So I'd love for you to give a quick introduction and talk a little bit here about what this tech stack and why it's important and what goes on there.
Absolutely. So first of all, Tom, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to talk a bit and share a bit of our knowledge. So yes, my name is Madhav Surapaneni. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Orchatect. We are a franchise management system. So we've been in the space for about 6 years. We probably have about 129 locations across about 11 brands right now, both in the US and Canada, and we're actually moving into Central America this year. So we've been growing and expanding. Now, all of us come from an interesting background. I say all of us as the founders, because we're all technology people. We all work with the big, mid-size and enterprise companies like your Ericssons, your Nortels, your Oracles of the world. And we're all ex-business consultants as well. So a couple of years ago, we were solving this problem that you so aptly shared, where about the plethora of systems. And we're building a solution for the big enterprise clients when we realize that the same problem exists even in the emerging and mid-size world as well. And the question really is, how do you bring a platform that is approachable to the brands and the companies at that level, who not all of them can afford an SAP or an Oracle and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars just in the implementation and then forget about the monthly costs and subscription costs, right? So the fundamental problem that we've been solving with the Orchatect, the platform name is Maestro. So just like a maestro as a conductor in an orchestra manages multiple musical instruments, so everything is in sync, we manage multiple software systems within a brand, right? So we make sure that they're all connected, because typically what happens is, like you said, you have different systems. They're all fragmented. They don't talk to each other. They don't connect with each other. And then we end up dumping the data into an Excel and using Excel to manipulate and understand what's happening in the business. But that's not the way an effective system should work. An effective system should allow every data set to flow seamlessly across all the applications. And now you have to figure a centralized platform. And that's where the Maestro comes into play, where we can connect the different systems together into a centralized pane of glass.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I like how you gave that overview. And I mean, I think it'd be interesting for you to talk a little bit about, you hinted at this, and so did I, about the pain point of really not having your arms around all of your data. You talked about manipulating spreadsheets and going through that. And I would argue that probably most people aren't even doing that, especially the small to mid-sized franchises. Maybe they've got a CRM system that they're just looking at some very basic fundamentals, total leads coming in, or maybe a conversion rate. And from maybe they're in their accounting system, they're looking at some general profit and loss statements or quarterly revenue, annual revenue. And outside of that, it's about it. But they're all of these are run in silos. And look, I say that because I'm guilty as charged. Okay, so I'm not calling anyone out here when I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Okay, so I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that you've seen, an example or two of a client that you've worked with where they were scattered. Describe what that situation looked like, and then talk about maybe a solution or once it was all kind of resolved, what that end result looked like.
And no, absolutely. And we've all been there, right? We've all used Excel as our dumping ground and pulling in data. We're all guilty of that. The interesting thing is, before I get into the example, I think a good segue and a common question we get from a lot of brands is, oh, we're too young, or we're too small, oh, let us come to 10 or 15. And we tell people that's not the case. We have brands that have started off with one location with us. And there's a couple of unique nuances that have to be kept in mind as a brand, right? In your FDD, there is a tech fee, right? When you build the technology for your company, for your brand, you have to understand what's in the tech fee. We meet brands all the time where they said, yeah, we have a tech fee, it's $100. $100 covers QuickBooks today, right? Then if you add on if you have inventory management, or you have a warehouse, or you have to do loyalty management or order management, and then operational analytics, and then checklist and onboard tracking and itemized item 19 and 20 automation, all of this is technology. So all of this has to be part of your tech fee. And the advantage we've seen when a brand understands what is my technology requirements, when you talk to a prospect and the prospect knows that coming in or walking into a brand, I don't have to worry about the technology aspect because it's all taken care of. It's much more appealing knowing that going to market, I don't have to worry about my end product, whether you're taking care of an animal or a pet or making a burger or a sandwich or your spa. I can worry about that aspect because the technology side is already pre-built and identified by the brand. So we've seen and we've heard from clients where having a ready-made technology stack has actually sold and been made more attractive to a prospect, right? So knowing what your technology is going to be, knowing what the fees are going to be, having that in the FDD upfront changes some of the dynamics on how a prospect looks at a particular brand. If you walk in as a prospect and the brand owner says, well, you can go pick up your own POS and you decide your own accounting and you decide that from my perspective also is saying the brand doesn't know what they should be doing because you're walking into a system, right? If I'm signing up with a franchise, I'm walking into a system that's been identified, has been verified, and I can walk in knowing they know everything. So I think that's an important segue or important piece to take because we see this all the time when brands are talking to prospects or they ask us when is the best time to reach out to add technology. From our perspective, it's from day one.
See, I see. So, very interesting. So it's all set up, it's connected, it's speaking all at the same time. Well, I would imagine, especially for a new brand or a young growing brand, a common question is, well, it doesn't really apply. And then the other thought is, well, it doesn't really apply because it doesn't really fit in my budget, right? is probably a next logical thing where they say, well, Madhav, that makes sense, but how am I going to afford this? I don't have unlimited budgets. So how do you respond back to someone who might say that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically, because the technology is being used by the franchisees, most brands include that cost in the FDD as part of the tech. So as part of royalties, you're collecting technology fees that covers the cost of this platform, right?
Mm,
From the Zor's perspective, there's not a heavy lift or a heavy financial upgrade from them. It's already included in the monthly fees you're getting from the franchisee.
I see. I see. Perfect. Perfect. And so do you work then with the franchisors in helping them evaluate their technology fee and tech stack that gets included, or how does something like that work?
Absolutely. So a big part of our working hand in hand, and we're not just working with the client for the first time. we actually have weekly calls with all our customers, right? Because as they're growing and as they're scaling, then they're adding new functionality. And the beauty of the platform is that it's a modular platform. So you don't have to buy every single piece of the platform. You can add to it as you're growing, right? So as a young brand, as most brands, so we look at a franchise's life cycle in three stages. The business development stage, where you're trying to find prospects and you're managing through a pipeline, right? Here's where you can use a HubSpot or a client tether or a pipe drive where you're managing that. Then as you sign the client, a prospect, and becomes a franchisee, then everything under managing the locations comes into play. The onboarding checklist tracker. How do you do compliancy? How do you itemize 19 and item 20? How do you calculate and manage royalties? So everything you need to manage the location is probably the next phase. And the third part of it is the operation side of it. Now the store is open, now the location is open. Are you now offering services? How do you manage the sales numbers and the KPIs? How are you tracking inventory? How do you connect that into your accounting systems? How do you do troubleshooting? How do you actually, if you want to open ticket to the ZOR from a franchisee's perspective, do you have the ability to do ticket and incident reporting? So all of these functionalities are built into the Maestro platform. So when you start off, we don't need all of those things. Maybe you just start off with the business development side and say, I want to bring a CRM to manage the pipeline. Or I have, now we're opening locations. I want a checklist. I want to track the progress of all my prospects through this journey from the time they sign the agreement to the time they open the location. I want to know where they are and tracking. Have they done this? Have they signed the lease? Have they got the EIN number? Have they got the architectural drawings? Have they signed up for the POS? Where are they in their journey? So depending on how we're growing as a brand, we can add functionality. So it's not then thing at once. We can add piece to piece, so it's not overwhelming as well.
I see. Very, very interesting. Well, I know we're going to look at maybe an example or two, or maybe a case study, or it doesn't even have to be a case study, maybe just common scenarios you run into, just to share some ideas. So someone who's listening in might say, well, I get it, Madhav, but you don't get my scenario, my situation. I've got two CRMs, and one's an old one that we still kind of use, and we've got this other one, and we use QuickBooks, but we invoice through this, we send emails, and then we get a payment, and some people mail checks, and some people, and then we take them through our project management system, right? And it goes on and on and on. So I'd love for you to maybe help put someone at a comfort level who might say, I've got a lot going on here. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you work with brands that have multiple systems, we actually sit down with them and understand what do they have in their current tech stack, and understand, okay, why do you have two CRMs, or why do I have three POS systems, or why do I have these different variances? And then identify not only what they need today, but where they would need 5-10 years from now, right? Because the beauty of a management platform is you may use Square today as your POS, but 6 months or a year from now, you want to move to Clover or something else. An orchestration platform allows you to change those peripheral software systems while keeping the bulk of the data internally within the Maestro platform. So we work and understand where the client is with their tech stack, and we together roll out a future forward-looking technology stack of where the brand needs to go. And then we work with them to do like a digital transformation if they need to, or we work with clients and we move the data from old systems to new systems, depending on what you're doing, because you still have old legacy software that don't have APIs. You have it really downloaded in an Excel sheet, right? That prevents brands from growing and scaling as quickly as they want, because it restricts that flow of information. So then we have to identify, okay, yes, we're using XYZ POS, but guess what? We need to move to more modernized POS. For you to grow 200 locations, 200, everybody wants to be 100, 150, 200 locations, right? So how do you get there quicker, right? So that's how we talk with the brands, understand where they are, give some recommendations, and work with them to get to that point in time.
I see. Okay, very good. Very good. Well, in terms of an evaluation, or maybe even a self-assessment that a company can start what advice might you give to someone that listens in or checks us out to get a starting point? Because if they're like a lot of small to mid-size businesses or franchisors, they're in the thick of operating the business and they just know that the systems are working right now to get them what they need. What might a first step be for internal or almost maybe auditing or looking at what they've got in place?
That's a great question because we get that question all the time. So I would say just call us. We do free evaluations because we will come in and sit down with the client and with the brand and just help them understand where they are and even give our suggestions, right? Because
Yep.
the knowledge we're sharing, see, that's what we do, right? We are always evaluating software systems. So the knowledge we have, we're happy to share that knowledge, right? So we tell people all the time, get on a call with us. Let's walk. Again, there's no commitment here, right? We're happy to do it. It's part of our service. So we're happy to understand where you are in your journey and how we can help. And if not, we will recommend even other systems that you can go to without any commitment fear.
And then Manav, if I could imagine, I'd wonder, well, do you have a preference on certain systems or recommendations? What if I'm using, a typical, many small businesses are using a QuickBooks and they're using a well-known CRM system, like you mentioned, a HubSpot, a Zoho, in franchising, a Client Tether, some of these well-known popular systems. Do you come in and try to change all of this stuff up on somebody?
No, we don't. The whole value add of an orchestration platform is the ability to come in and connect the existing systems. So with some of these, we're already Intuit partners like Intuit and QuickBooks. We're partners with them. We're partners with Client Tether. But if you bring a software, as long as the software has open APIs or APIs that allows us to connect, it's a win-win, right? Now, you will come across legacy software systems that don't have open APIs or don't have APIs in general. That becomes a challenge because now we cannot pull the data directly real time, which now causes other issues. So in such cases, we would strongly recommend moving to another platform that they're comfortable with, and then as long as they have open APIs. So I'll give you an example. We were doing an evaluation for a pet brand a couple of years ago. And they said, okay, here are my requirements on a pet software. I'm like, okay, fine. So we went and called and did the demos with about, I think, 11 or 12 different pet software companies. And then based on the criteria that the customer had shared with us, we went back with the top four and said, these are the top four that will work with you. They'll also work with us from a technology perspective because you can pull the data. The last choice, the final choice is yours, right? Which one of these fours do you connect with? As long as they meet these criteria, we're okay. So we do come and evaluate, and as long as the system has APIs and we're able to connect, we're not fixed to a particular solution or a particular software, particular POS or inventory. So that's why in the Maestro platform, we integrate with multiple point of sale systems, we integrate with multiple LMS systems, we integrate with multiple accounting systems. So the ability for us to orchestrate and connect is what gives us a strength, because as the customer changes and decides 3 years from now, 2 years from now, we can change with them.
I see. Very, very nice. And will you make recommendations to customers or to some of your clients? Do you help advise on if they come to you and say, "Well, Madhav, I'm looking for a fill in the blank, or I need a solution for this." Do you help through that kind of recommendation process?
Absolutely, because more than likely, because a big part of my company, we are constantly evaluating software systems as they're coming out, because it's part of, we have to also know what's in the loop. And we have probably seen more POS systems in every different vertical than probably most brands have, right? So, and when we sell, for example, we have multiple restaurant brands, right? We integrate right now with Heartland and Bring and Clover, Sintra, Square, and we're working with one in called BIMS in Central America. So we're constantly evaluating and integrating with multiple systems. So we can definitely recommend, if the client doesn't have if he doesn't have an idea, what do you suggest? We can definitely recommend some of the options that we have because we've already done that integration.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, for someone who listens in and says, I like what you're saying, how can they take a first step with you? How can they get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
The first step definitely is go to our contact page on architect.com and just set up an appointment, a 30-minute appointment or something with us, and help us understand what you're doing, help us understand what your needs are, because as we understand what your long-term goals are for the brand, then we can help provide or suggest the best tech solution. Or you can
Hmm.
even share, this is what I have, this is what I'm thinking, and we together we can identify that tech solution that becomes a customized solution for that company or for that client or for the brand.
I see. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to see, maybe if for attendees here, if we've got any questions, you can feel free to type it into a chat box or raise your hand here if you have any questions. But Manav, are there other things you'd like to make sure that we that you share, or that you maybe haven't had a chance to get across yet here?
No, I think I've covered most of the things. I think our biggest takeaway over the last 5, 6 years is for brands to really understand the importance of our technology platform, right? We're seeing now a shift. We're definitely feeling a shift in the franchise world, where at one point technology was on the back burner, so to speak. But we're seeing a shift, especially with the more younger generation that understands technology, understands the impact of how technology can on growth and scalability, that tech is coming to the forefront. And it's also a big piece of a business, any business's success. You have to understand how to use technology. Everybody says, how do I use AI? Right? A common question is, okay, can I use AI for operations? That's a big concern because AI is a good tool, but it's a tool. It's not the end all be all of everything, right? So how do you use the new upcoming systems like an AI or ML? How do you use that into and incorporate that within your own company to get the benefits without taking the disadvantage of that may come with it, right? So for example, we tell people AI is great on anything with documentation, email responses, manual creations, contracts. It works really well. Right now, AI is very, very young on to do operational analytics. The reason being, AI needs data to understand and learn from the data, right? So if you're a young company, you cannot use AI for analytics because you don't have enough data for the AI to even learn. So then what it's recommending, you're gonna take a bag of sugar or a bag of salt or whatever, and then really understand it. So that's where we come in as advisors and say, okay, this is the right way to approach AI, this is not the right way, or this is the right other solution. There are other ways to peel the onion, but that's our expertise, right? We've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years. So we understand this world. So let us help you get the best tech solution for your brand, for your company, so you can grow and scale while providing the best value to your end clients.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Madhav, what's the website again for someone to book an appointment and get in touch with you?
The easiest way is go to www.orchatect.com. That's ORCHATECT.com. And on the contact page, that'll be the best way to set up an appointment with us.
Perfect.
And we walk through the platform if you want to see it a little bit. I can give you a little glimpse of it, hopefully.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds great. Well, we'll make sure we include that when this gets republished as well in the show notes when this goes live on the podcast. And then for anyone who's watching on YouTube, they should be able to get direct connect right to you there. So, Manav, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to having you back next week here.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.